order, honorable members. Honorable Chief Whip of the MK Party, what's the point of order?
Thank you, Speaker. Today I rise on behalf of the Progressive Caucus and millions of South Africans. We cannot continue today as business as usual while we have a president in front of us who is continuously living under the shadow and facing impeachment processes. We cannot continue to legitimize his presidency.
Honorable member, what's the point of order?
Speaker, I have written a letter to you prior to...
State the rules, state the rules.
Honorable members. Honorable members, can you please not open your mics when you are not pointed? What is your point of order?
Thank you, Speaker.
The letter you have written to me, I've received it, and I don't think it's for the House. You can take
Speaker, Speaker, can I speak?
No retreat, no surrender.
Order.
It cannot be business as usual. There is a reason why I wrote that letter today, because there is an emergency that we need to discuss as this House.
Honorable members, order. Can I address you? Can you please take your seat? Thank you. Honorable members, you have written a letter in respect of a matter that you would like the House to debate. As you know, that cannot happen today. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. I've not responded to the letter of the honorable member because I'm applying my mind on it. Today, we only have got questions to the President. Thank you. Honorable Noluchungu.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you look around this House, you will see that this House is mainly dominated by black faces. That is as a result of those who sacrificed the generation of 1960, the students of 1976. For that, we respect this House.
Yes.
We therefore cannot sit here and listen to someone who does not respect the Constitution. So I want to register that to you.
Order, honorable members.
Hey, bye-bye.
Honorable members, can I address you? Rule 47, which talks about the sequence of proceedings. Order. Order, honorable members. I did not ask to be assisted in chairing. So can you please refrain from what you're doing? The notices and the orders of each day are discussed and agreed to in the rules, in the programming, and in the Chief Whip's Forum. The issue of a motion, which you have written to me about, as you know, has to be considered, and I will respond to you accordingly, but you cannot insist that as we sit here, we suspend the order and discuss a motion. Thank you very much. Honorable Zungula, yes, I've seen you.
Speaker, this is the first time the House is meeting after the Constitutional Court ruling. The first thing you should do is to inform South Africans that the President is effectively charged. He is going to be subjected to an impeachment process. It cannot be that as the House is sitting, you do not take into confidence South Africans about this step that has never happened in our country, whereby a president is impeached. Siyakucela mama, asifuna ufane noma munqakula uye kwi-podcast after this organization.
Can you please take your seat? Honorable member, can I address you? Unless you have forgotten what the matters that was in the Constitutional Court was about. And those matters was about Parliament and Parliament's processes. And I think people should not jump the gun in terms of those processes. You sit in the Chief Whip's Forum, you know exactly the step that the Speaker has taken in following the judgment and its implementation. And I think that matter doesn't arise now. Honorable Member.
Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise on Rule 85 with respect to proper motives to the President and subsequently casting aspersion that the President doesn't respect the Constitution of the
Order,
Republic.
honorable members.
President,
Order.
that the President...
Honorable members, can you please allow a member on the podium to express himself? Honorable members, honorable member of the MK party, do you want to actually respect this house, or you would want me to rule you out of order and subsequently ask you to leave the house? And I don't think that's what you want. So let's behave ourselves. When your chief whip was speaking, she was listened to, and you need to accord everybody the same right. Can you please continue?
Thank you, esteemed Honorable Speaker. Rule 85 with respect to impute improper motive to His Excellency the President that he doesn't respect the Constitution. And I must emphasize as a point that the Constitutional Court has not found anything negative against His Excellency the President. The Constitutional Court has found issues relating to the rules and processes of Parliament, not His Excellency
because
the
you
President
abuse
of the
your
Republic.
rules. You abuse the rule.
Thank you, Honourable Member. That order, point of order, is sustained. It is within the rules, and you know it very well. Honourable members, I actually am suspending this discussion on the sequence of the program. We have you are not going to say that, Honourable Reddy. Today, it's about the questions to the President, and that's where we end.
Speaker.
Can I ask, respectively, all other members who have got you? I've noted you, Honourable Mellon, and I've noted Honourable Mantashe, and I'm ruling that now we move to the questions to the President, as it is in the order paper. Thank you very much. The only item on today's order paper is questions addressed to the President. Parties, order. Honourable members. Honourable members, can you be in order? I've noted the leader of MK party. I have ruled and I've sustained the order in terms of what we are here to do before in this house. And we are not having any other matter on the agenda. If you have concerns, you can follow up and write as it is according to the rules if you are not happy with the rule that has just been made in terms of the ruling. Thank you.
Speaker, the rules allow us to raise point of orders. And you can't preempt
You are
what
out
these
of
hands
order,
are going to say.
You are out of order.
Order,
You are
honourable
doing
members.
what they did in 2022.
Honourable
You are
members.
protecting a constitutional
Honourable
delinquent.
member. Honourable
Someone
member.
who could be a criminal.
Honourable Reddy, I'm naming you. I'm naming you. Because you know
Speaker,
exactly
can
what
I be
happened in this
recognized,
House of
please?
Order. I am naming you, and the next thing you do that, you will have to leave the chamber.
Please, Speaker,
Can I
let
be
him go.
recognized,
Cannot
please?
waste the time of this house. Honourable members, I have made a ruling. I have made a ruling. Honourable members, I, as the Speaker of this House, have the duty to ensure the smooth conduct. I've listened to your request and I've indicated that that does not arise. The motion that the member wants to bring will be brought here appropriately. She knows that. She wrote a letter this afternoon and she can't expect an answer and put that motion when it has not gone to the order. Honourable Reddy. Honourable Reddy, do you want to remain in the House? Better behave. Honourable members, Can those of you with their hands up put them down? No. Can we go back to the order in terms
In that
of
case,
what
Honorable
is on the
Speaker, we
agenda?
cannot sit.
Thank you. Honorable members, those of you who want to leave the House, can you please do so orderly? Honorable members of the MK, honorable members of the KMA, you are actually causing disorder. Can the sergeant at arms please assist the members to go out? Can you please assist the members to get out of the House? Honorable members,
Use force with ready.
we have got only one item on the agenda, and that's the question addressed to the President. Parties have given an indication on which questions their members wish to pose supplementary questions. Adequate notices was given to parties for this purpose. The members who will pose supplementary questions will be recognized by the presiding officer. In allocating opportunities for supplementary questions, the principle of fairness, among others, has been applied. When all the supplementary questions have been answered by the President, we will proceed to the next question on the order paper. First questions to the President has been asked by Honorable M. Tuli. The question is that given that the South African Investment Conference 2026, which is now also replicated in other provinces, secured 415 billion in investment pledges, and noting that the Republic is grappling with a structural unemployment problem where the economy is unable to absorb those who enter the labor market on an annual basis. What is the envisaged growth in employment that is anticipated investment will bring within the medium to the long term? Honorable President, you can take the podium or answer from your seat if you want to.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Madam Speaker, honorable members, as I begin, I would ask that we remember those who have lost their lives, their homes, and their livelihoods to the severe flooding that our country has been facing in the past week. At least 10 lives have been lost and thousands of people have now been displaced. I should say that our thoughts and our prayers are with the families who are mourning their loved ones, with those who have lost their lives, all that they had, and with the owners of businesses that have also been destroyed. We pay our respects to those who have lost their lives. We also want to pay tribute to the first responders who are emergency rescue teams, the disaster relief personnel in the affected provinces, we offer those who have come to the fore to assist those who have been affected by these disasters. We offer our nation's gratitude to the authorities and to relief organizations and to many community-based structures who are on the ground and various individuals. Would like to thank you for all you have been doing to assist those who have been affected. And to every South African who has stepped in to help, we say, Enkosi, Bayadanki, Siyabonga, Realeboka. Thank you. And we should say that we stand with those who've been affected. We've seen how our various elected officials and officials have been going to the areas that have been struck by these disasters. And we thank them, the mayors, the MECs, and the premiers who have taken the trouble to go to all these places. Madam Speaker, to the question of the South African Investment Conference and its contribution to job creation. The 6th South African Investment Conference that we held in March secured a total of 890 billion rand in investment commitments. This is the very first time that any of our investment conferences have clocked up a huge number like this. Around 415 billion of that total came from private sector companies, and the remainder came from our development finance institutions, as well as multilateral development banks. Of the 81 confirmed private sector investments, 53 companies submitted employment declarations at the time of signing. The balance were not at the time able to submit the tally or the numbers of those who would be employed as a result of the investment commitments that they announced. Now, these 53 investments are projected by the companies themselves to create approximately 230,000 direct permanent jobs. Not all investment capital, honorable members, creates employment at the same rate. They often differ quite substantially. Labor-intensive investments in global business services and financial services generate approximately 3,900 jobs per 1 billion that is invested. However, capital-intensive sectors such as renewable energy infrastructure and data centers, they generate between 13 and 249 jobs per 1 billion of investments. While these investments that are critical for energy security in our country, as well as for digital connectivity, as in data centers, and hence economic growth, they do not create as many jobs as directly, or the jobs that we would want to see. However, they do lead to enhancing our energy security as well as connectivity. A number of the largest commitments included those from Sasol, MTN, Vodacom, Coca-Cola, and a number of others. And they involve their own expansions on existing operations. And these investments sustain existing jobs and incrementally grow the operations of those companies, but in course of time, they will increase their workforces as well. Employment growth from these investments will be realized over many years as projects move from pledge to implementation. And the pledges are often as a result of decisions that are taken by their board of directors, and their management then start planning the processes for putting down the investments. All 81 investments are being tracked quarterly by our offices, particularly through the Invest SA office, and investments facing implementation blockages are referred for active resolution with escalation to the various ministers concerned. Declared employment figures will be verified against actual hiring outcomes as investments mature, and an annual implementation report will be tabled accordingly. The structural unemployment is rooted in a number of reasons or factors: mismatch of skills, special economic concentration, slow economic growth of the informal sector and the private sector, the structure of the economy which is given rise to by the concentration also acts as a barrier to creating broader employment. These are challenges that obviously require systemic policy response beyond investment attraction alone. South Africa's conference is one instrument to create jobs within a government-wide strategy. However, there are many other investments that happen outside of the confines of the conferences that we hold. This strategy that we have includes our massive infrastructure investment, the revitalized industrial policy, and the overhaul of our skills development system, which will help us to remove also the barriers to small business and also the completion of the reforms of our network industries. This year's conference has encouraged us to increase our ambition, to raise the target to 3 trillion rand in new investments over the 5-year period. Through the progress that we are making in our drive for inclusive growth, as well as job creation, Madam Speaker, I am confident that we will reach the target that we have set, and we will continue showing more and more economic growth in our economy. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President. The first supplementary question will be from Honorable Nduli.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon to the President and all honorable members. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for that comprehensive answer, which is quite helpful. Now, Mr. President, where I would like you to further clarify on this matter is that as the first conference that was in 2018, the investment pledges were within the range of about 290 billion. And at the time, the level of unemployment was at a level slightly below where we are today. Now, there's a good confidence in terms of business investment with more money being pledged to be injected into the economy. And unfortunately, that image is at a time where the level of unemployment is also soaring up. We would like the President to explain to the South Africans how should they retain a strong confidence in these initiatives in the light of the fact that the levels of unemployment are increasing. And also, President, to also comment as to whether or not, in your opinion, aren't we confronted by a situation where some of the companies are making commitments that are beyond what they are able to deliver within the time at which they are committing? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President.
Honorable Speaker, well, starting with the last part of your conference, obviously, when companies make commitments, they are expressing their hopes and their ambitions. And those hopes and ambitions should be respected because these are independent and voluntary companies that are planning for the growth of their businesses. And in the main, we often find that much as at times there are delays in putting down those investments, they do live up to the hopes and the objectives that they have set for themselves. Sometimes the delays have to do with the regulatory environment, and sometimes there's some force majeure. But in the end, the majority of companies that make commitments were found do live up to those, and sometimes it does take a little longer. Obviously, our economy is facing enormous challenges and difficulties. And some of those challenges and difficulties have also been given rise to by the slow turn in economic growth, maybe globally. Usually, a number of high-growing countries have been growing at 5, 6, 7%. They are now much lower. And there is a slowdown generally in the global economy. However, we are a developing economy country and would have expected that our growth would be a lot higher than where it is now. We are hoping and targeting a growth level of 3% and above as we carry on with our reforms. The lack of reforms has held companies back from investing as they would. It has held back investments, and it is as we are embarking on these reforms in our logistics network to enhance exports and imports. That should lead up to many goods being exported and imported into our country. Our electricity challenges of the past few years have also led to companies not being quite forward in terms of investing. When you look at factories and mines, for them to operate at an optimal level, they need energy. And without energy, the economy cannot grow. The economy revolves around energy. It revolves also around the regulatory environment. And it is for this reason that we are also upscaling our regulatory environment, removing barriers so that businesses can operate more profitably. And of course, the other challenge, as I said, is the concentration of the economy of our country in terms of the ownership thereof. Our economy is a small economy, however, it is too concentrated. That has been commented on by international bodies as well, like the World Bank and the IMF, who have said one of the key challenges with the South African economy is that it's too concentrated. Too many large companies control our economy, and the space has not been opened for many other small and medium enterprises to operate. And for that reason, honorable members, we are focusing on enhancing the capability of small and medium enterprises so that they can operate. And that is why we're also focusing on aspects like providing finance through a variety of funds, so that entrepreneurs can come to the fore as they realize that the glass ceiling that they may have perceived is no longer there. So all these matters have to be taken to a higher level, including skills development. We're focusing on how we can develop the skills, particularly of our young people, but we are also doing quite a lot when it comes to public employment. Our public employment programs have been lauded by many, many other people around the world as being forward-looking and quite progressive. So a lot, honorable members, is being done to focus on increasing the levels of employment, because the levels of our unemployment are just unacceptable. And for that reason, we're doing everything we can and in our power to enhance the growth of our economy as well as to create more employment. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable R.W.T. Chance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. President, economic growth is built on investment. Yet South Africa's domestic investment rate has collapsed from 24% in 2009 to 14% in 2025. This means that there is less growth, more debt, and less jobs created. The most recent quarterly labour survey has confirmed that the devastating consequences of lack of investment into the country are dire. Our economy has lost 345,000 jobs in the last quarter. Not mere job opportunities, not temporary jobs or training schemes, but real, tangible jobs. These are outcomes of bad ANC policies, such as triple BEE, bailing out failed SOEs, and cadre deployment, amongst others. Between these failed policies, Mr. President, which one will you scrap first in order to restore investment confidence, boost economic growth, and create more jobs?
Thank you, Honourable President.
Well, clearly, our ambition is that we should see the levels of our investments, of our growth, our economy growing. And indeed, the gross fixed investments in our country have come down. And it's largely been, and not only, largely been the public sector that has not ramped up the investments as they should. But to answer that challenge, we are and we have committed 1 trillion rand, the very first time in the history of our country, that we commit 1 trillion rand for infrastructure investment. It's never happened. And we have focused on investing in infrastructure. As I've often said, infrastructure is the flywheel that turns the economy around, because from that flows a whole number of other benefits that can be reaped as other businesses then hang on to infrastructure projects and create more and more jobs. I'd like to address this issue that is always thrown about BEE being an impediment to the growth of our economy. It is false, it is lies, and it is just a slogan. It has become a slogan. An honourable member, I'd like to give you just one example, just one sector, and that sector is mining. Pre-1994, and having been an organizer of mine workers, I should know. Pre-1994, the mining industry in our country was just controlled by 6 mega companies. They held all the mineral rights in South Africa, and they were tending to hold them in perpetuity. One of them actually once said, once we are given mineral rights, they become our rights forever, and they are like biltong, dried up biltong. We just cut what we want, eat it, and put it away. But when the democratic government changed the law and nationalized all the mineral rights in our country, it opened up space for black people to get into mining. Today, many black people are now in the mining industry. They are mining manganese, which they were not able even to get into. They are mining coal. They only participated in coal as workers. They are mining gold. They only were gold miners and not owners. Today, that industry has got more black entrepreneurs. Black mining companies, some of them are the biggest. For instance, Cyril, which is a coal mining company, is owned by black people. And how can anyone say that has impeded the growth of our economy? That company and many others, Harmony and others, they are expanding their operations. They are expanding the skill base in their companies. Where white people only did certain jobs, they've opened up. More and more black engineers are being employed, at management level, and they are running those companies effectively. And more jobs are being created. So if people come with this fallacy that BEE is an impediment to the growth of the economy, go to the mining industry and see what this democratic government has done. It has changed the landscape of the mining industry, and black people are participating to full effect. I've often said, the apartheid era was so bad for our country because it only kept opportunities for a few people. Now, only 6 companies control the mining industry. Today, we've got tens and tens of black-owned companies operating in that industry, which has opened up space and making South Africa normal, rather than just making South Africa a country where only a few can participate. And I think those who say it's a holdback for economic growth should hang their heads in shame, because if they say so, it means that they wanted white people only to continue controlling the economy of our country. That cannot be, and that cannot be allowed. And we are not going to allow that. We are opening up space for black people to participate in the economy, and they have demonstrated. I mean, Siriti company alone is committing 6 billion rand building renewable energy in the Mpumalanga and the Limpopo area. What do you call that? It is growth, and it is being driven by those who have now been empowered. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, President. The next supplementary question comes from Dr. M.A. Maimane.
Ke a leboga, Speaker. Mr. President, the quarter labor force result survey indicates that 300,000 South Africans have joined the ranks of the unemployed. I'm glad you chose a sector like mining, Mr. President, which is the 9th contributor to our GDP. I want to pick the 4th largest, which is manufacturing. Morocco last year surpassed South Africa as the highest motor vehicle maker in Africa. So you are going out, Mr. President, and raising capital. But I would argue you are being failed by your Minister of Employment. Because in truth, if we lose VW in Kabeja, it is going to Morocco, which means we'll lose the whole town and we'll lose jobs. So, Mr. President, I want to ask you, are you willing, and I'm willing to work with you on this, introduce reforms that will introduce EVs into our market so that we can ramp up manufacturing, if you are willing to also get rid of the Minister of Employment so that we can free up our economy, so that the investment you raise, Mr. President, can direct and contribute to job creation in our nation. Our young people are losing their future.
Honourable
As
Member,
a
your
brief,
time
Mr.
is up.
President, let's act. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The low levels of employment in our country are a challenge to all of us, to government, to communities, to companies as well as, I would say, to the leadership of this country. And political leaders are also part of that leadership. And the causes of unemployment are numerous. They have to do with a whole number of issues which I have touched on. And the skill base in our country has to be upgraded to enable young people to be employable and to be able to be well trained in the various disciplines that companies need to run their operations. Manufacturing in our country has been sliding down. A number of factories have been closing. We admit that. And the industrial policy process that we are involved in, which will soon be released by the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, is aimed at ensuring that we generate more growth in our economic activity, particularly in manufacturing. Agriculture is also showing growth. Mining, as we now open up for exploration, more and more exploration, and as we now have a new system of issuing licenses, which will enable those who want to mine to have easier access and quicker access to mine the ore reserves. And as we get rid of the regulatory processes through either the licensing or the permitting system, we will be able to open the arteries of our economy so that those who want to do business can find greater opportunity to continue doing business. We are focused on that. Minister of Employment and Labor is focused also on her job. And through the various labor activation processes that the department is involved in, that's precisely what we're doing. And we're also focusing on the spreading of labor inspectors so that we can inspect workplaces and ensure that they operate in a way that will protect workers' rights, that will in fact advance workers' rights. All these initiatives are underway, and I have found no letdown in any of the ministers who are working on economic matters. In fact, I have found that they're doing quite a lot of work, and the task they've been given is to focus on employment. That's what they've been given. In their employment, in their contracts, they have a target, they have an objective of focusing on employment as well. The management of our economy through the policies that have been put out by the Ministry of Finance, DTIC, and what we are doing in various areas is to enhance economic growth and to ensure that we have more and more employment. And sometimes companies go through difficulties and retrench workers. We work very hard to protect employment. For instance, we were facing a real challenge recently of smelters that were about to close. And we had to step in to support those industries that are in trouble so as to save jobs and secure the jobs of people who are working in those foundries. So a lot is being done of a defensive nature as well as of a proactive nature in ensuring that we secure jobs and we create more jobs. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you,
Speaker,
Mr.
sorry, I did ask the President
What's the
about
point of order?
EVs. That is my point of order. The President did not respond to my question about electric vehicles.
Order,
That was
honorable
the
member.
question.
Yes, I understand, and I was going to say maybe when President responds to the question by Mr. Ntuli, he can then respond to that part of your question, if you would allow. Honorable Ntuli.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thanks, President, for your response on the questions about the investment. Now, Mr. President, given the fact that both our local and international investors are pumping money into the economy, it is inevitable that the government is going to have to work out a strategy to align the skills development in the country, especially in the manufacturing sector, in the ITC and the renewable space, in order to ensure that at the time when these investments are maturing, we're not running into a different problem of the lack of the skills development within those sectors. So I would like to get the President to comment on what work is being done to ensure that we raise the skills level in the sectors that investment are going to be impacting on. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mr. President.
Honorable Speaker, without being trying to be difficult, because of this room, I did not hear fully what Honorable Maimani's question on EV was. We've got the noise outside, and I didn't hear him very clearly. If he could repeat his question on EVs.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll ask Honorable Maimane to repeat that section of his question.
Of course, Ke a leboga mo President. I was saying Morocco has surpassed us in this regard. Rwanda is doing the same. Is the South African government willing to introduce reforms to introduce electric vehicles, because we can't keep making petrol motors in an economy that is moving towards electric? That's what I'm wanting to talk about.
Thank you.
Honorable President.
Thank you. Let me start off with Honorable Ntuli's question. Yes, the development and enhancement of the skills of all workers, including just young people, is something that is prominent in our minds, and that is why I have been talking about ensuring that we have a dual system, a system where young people are able to be brought into the world of work, are trained on the job, but are also trained academically in various institutions. Countries that have done so, like Germany and like Switzerland that I visited last year, have demonstrated that when you have a dual system, you are able to increase levels of employment. As young people come into the world of work, they are assured of getting employment. And we do have quite a lot of funds that I now want us to mobilize to achieve that objective. We've had for quite a long time, yes, our SETAs, and we have said now we are going to review our SETA system. Our current SETA system does not fully ensure that a dual system actually is put in place. Now, with a review of our SETA system, we should be able to have a dual system right from the beginning of the training of young people. Academically, they should be paired with actual live jobs, so that when they finish their academic training, they are then able to know that they are going to get a job. We practice this with the YES program, which I've reported about. The YES program, which started years ago, was precisely that type of initiative between government and the private sector, which brings in young people into the world of work, skills them and prepares them for employment. Admittedly, not all of them finally get jobs, but a majority of them do get jobs, and they leave that program knowing that they are either employed by those companies or they will get jobs elsewhere. Now, that is what South Africa should now move towards. And that is why, Madam Speaker, I'd like to see more and more for our private sector companies participating in a very positive and revolutionary way to skill our country. One of the key problems with our economy is that the skill base we have is not well meshed with the needs that industry or the economy needs. So we've got to make sure that we merge the two, and in that way we will be able to create more and more jobs. When it comes to Honorable Maimane's question, yes, EVs are the future. Many companies around the world are now switching over to electric vehicles. They have their own challenges. We are finalizing the full program on EVs, and the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition is finalizing all that, and we should be able to issue that out so that the car manufacturers can come to the fore. Many car manufacturers, and I've been to some of them in China, for instance, want to speed up their own production processes of electric vehicles. And a number of them have even said they will lay out the charging system throughout the country so that South Africa should, in many ways, or in some ways, migrate to EV. Admittedly, not every car will be EV driven, but a number of cars will be. So we are a most developed industrial base on the continent. And for us, it's an easy process. We will be able to take to this quite easily and quite quickly. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. We now move to the second question by Honorable Ms. J.S. Peterson. The
Madam
question... The question to the President is whether the government intends to use the South African National Defence Force and/or the public service to expand skills development and job placements as a response to youth unemployment. If not, what is the position in this regard? If so, how will the government ensure that such a program is voluntary, constitutional, and sustainably funded? Honorable President.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, there are various skills development programs and job opportunity programs within the public service, which include learnerships, internships, apprenticeships, graduate recruitment schemes, and workplace-based learning opportunities. These are programs that are undertaken by various government departments with the support of the Department of Public Service and Administration. The public service provides a valuable platform for skills development and youth employment placement as well. Consideration is being given, for instance, to strengthening workplace exposure opportunities by assigning youth participants to senior managerial positions to be adopted also by those who are currently in more executive positions. The Department of Public Service and Administration has begun exploratory initiatives to provide permanently employed young people and interns within the departments with work exposure opportunities aligned to the African Peer Review Mechanism. The National School of Government, in collaboration with other departments, is currently conducting training programs for unemployed young people participating in special projects and developmental initiatives. In line with the Reconstruction and Development Act of 1996, which advocates for the establishment of a national youth service, and in response to the persistently high levels of youth unemployment, as the President and Commander-in-Chief, we should consider a step change to increasing numbers of unemployed young people. The Department of Defense is involved in leading the war on unemployment in a number of ways, but it does so in partnership with other government departments and also the private sector, so as to ensure that the whole of society becomes involved as well in skills training. The SANDF supports the National Rural Youth Service Corps, which we call NARISEC, which aims to reduce unemployment among young people in rural communities through skills development, leadership training, and community service. The SANDF has also established the South African National Service Institute, which focuses on young people not in employment, education, or training. Now, the Institute is mandated to implement a comprehensive youth development program in partnership with stakeholders from the private and public sectors. The program seeks to recruit unemployed young people and equip them with a combination of classroom-based training as well as practical work experience. In the course of 2025, 584 matriculants who were trained in a character-building program have come out of that program much more empowered than before. Of these, 200 currently are artisans or are on artisan programs, which is sponsored by one of our seaters. Remaining students will be commencing with health promotion officers training in 3 months. Now, this training is distinct from the conventional military training that is offered by the SANDF to recruits that are entering the Defense Force on a full-time basis. So in the end, our Defense Force is not a Defense Force that's only geared up for war and defending the people of South Africa. It's a Defense Force that gets involved in a whole variety of programs, and many of which are aimed at training young people to acquire real skills, some in the engineering field, and a number of them leave those programs, NARISEC particularly, to either go and start their own businesses or to get employment. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable J.S. Peterson.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Honorable President, how many young people does the government estimate who could be accommodated annually through any proposed South African National Defence Force skills development initiative, and what projected budget allocations and funding sources have been identified over the medium term? Thank you.
I think the President didn't hear you very well. If you can please respond again.
Honorable the President, how many young people does the government estimate who could be accommodated annually through any proposed South African National Defence Force skills development initiatives, and what projected budget allocations and funding sources have been identified over the medium term? Thank you.
Mr. President.
Yes, I think I heard some aspects of that question. I seem to hear whether I know and have the number of people who've been brought into the program and what was the budget spent been in training all those young people. I'm afraid I do not have the number, but I'm happy that the number should be procured and could be supplied to the honorable member. I apologize for this. It is quite specific. The number I mentioned has to do with about 584 who were brought into the program and who were trained in a number of disciplines. But I will get the specific number as well as the budget or the expenditure that was incurred for the training of the other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable B.M. Maneli.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable President, in light of the initiatives launched by the Department of Public Service and Administration to provide work exposure opportunities and developmental programs such as learnerships and internships, could the President provide specific details on how these programs are being scaled across different departments and what measurable outcomes have been achieved so far in reducing youth unemployment? I thank you.
Mr. President.
As I said, the various programs that government has embarked upon are spread throughout a number of departments. However, the Presidential Employment Initiative has sought to agglomerate all of them with various government departments participating. And I have said before, up to 2 million young people have gone through the various employment opportunity initiatives. This, you might recall, started during COVID, when we brought in student assistance to almost 25,000 of our schools. Their participation in our schools was felt by the teachers, by the students themselves, the learners, as well as by communities. Wherever I went, I often heard that we would like those teacher assistants to stay because they are supporting the education initiatives in their schools. And those young people who went in were trained or helped the schools in a variety of ways. On IT systems, they helped the schools from the teaching methods that they had learned from their own learnings or universities or colleges, and they were quite effective. Apart from that, we also had a number participating in agriculture. We also had a number participating in health, for instance. So the programs are spread throughout the various departments, and we have found them to be quite effective. And of course, the only letdown for us is the budgetary constraints that we have. We wanted the finance or treasury to give more money to this program, but there wasn't just enough money. So it's been scaled back quite a bit, disappointingly. But we are hoping that more money, as the fiscus gets more revenue, we will be able to upscale that. These programs, all of them together, have proven to be quite beneficial to young people, and some of them have actually been bursaries. Various government departments have given bursaries to young people, either to learn here in our country or even offshore. Combined with what we are doing through NSFAS, we have found that these programs are actually empowering to young people. So a combination of all these programs have standing young people in good stead. And you may also know that we set up a platform where young people fly to their own CVs and make themselves available to employers. It's a platform that now has up to 5 million young people, and a number of them are able to source employment or training through that platform. So much is being done to bring down the levels of unemployment, particularly amongst young people in our country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. E.R.J. Spies.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Mr. President, South Africa does not suffer from a shortage of training initiatives. It suffers from a shortage of jobs, as very few of these training programs translate into real employment opportunities. Without measuring outcomes, we cannot measure the effectiveness of these programs. Can the President therefore indicate what percentage of participants in existing government-funded skills programs have ultimately been absorbed into real jobs? And if the President cannot, why would he be willing to take even more money from the taxpayer to fund yet another costly training scheme without the guarantee of real jobs to tackle our staggering youth unemployment rate?
Honorable Mr. President.
Well, the question that you are raising, Honorable Member, is precisely what is the main focus of the various programs that we have embarked upon. And speaking much more directly, that is why we are seeking to get, for instance, the contribution that is made by employers to be properly utilized for the dual training that we are talking about. Because the money that finally gets into the skills fund should be properly utilized in the way that I have been articulating. It is through this type of initiative or program that we will be able to increase the level of employment of our young people. Yes, you are right. It's often not so much skills, but jobs. But there is an intersection between skills and jobs. People need to get jobs to enhance their own skills, but they also need skills to be able to get into job opportunities. So we do need to focus on both as we create more and more opportunities for young people to learn, and also for young people to be able to get jobs. So we see the dual system as being the best that we can embark upon. More successful and more industrialized countries that are well steeped in engineering processes and creating quality products have embarked on this, and they've been doing it for years to good effect, and their levels of unemployment are rather low. So we've got, in a way, to burn the candle on both sides to make sure that we address the two problems more or less at the same time. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable Nkwangwa.
President, in order for the Defense Force to be able to do what the question is suggesting, the first thing that needs to be done is to address the funding constraints that are faced by the Department of Defense. I want to ask a question that, given that Cabinet approved recently SANDF's long-term force evolution strategy, Journey to Greatness, aimed at modernizing, rebuilding, and reforming the Defense Force. This strategy follows decades of defunding and underfunding of the defense, which affected its state of readiness. To what extent will the Journey to Greatness strategy secure increased funding for defense, and where will the additional resources come from to address the SANDF's funding challenges? Thank you.
Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We all know how departments such as the Defense Force and the police and a number of others, including now the Border Management Authority, have been starved of the necessary financial resources that they need to operate at a much better level than they do. And the Defense Force's journey to greatness has to be supported by adequate funding. And this is what we are committed to doing. Over years, the funding to the Defense Force has been coming down, and unacceptably down, because over the years, the needs that we have in our country have been quite enormous, where we are now spending 61% of our budget on social welfare. And in getting to that point, the Defense Force has been starved of the resources that it needs. And we are now turning that around. In the end, it is the people of South Africa who, through the revenue that is raised from them, will need to fund the Defense Force, will need to fund through their taxes the Defense Force. It is the national security of our country that needs to be secured. So, moving to that point of greatness once again is going to require full commitment on government side to deploy more financial resources for the Defense Force. What I can say is that the commitment is firm from myself as the Commander-in-Chief of our Defense Force, of our armed forces. The commitment is firm from Cabinet, and we are going to make sure that the Defense Force is no longer starved of the resources that it needs. So we will, moving forward with our various budgets, be allocating more and more money to the Defense Force. Of course, I know you would like me to stand here and masquerade as the Minister of Finance. I cannot do so. That will be done in the budgets that are forthcoming from the Treasury Department. So I can say, watch this space. We are going to be allocating more money to the Defense Force.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable J.S. Peterson.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Honorable President, is there any intention to prioritize specific provinces or categories of unemployed youth in the implementation of any such programs? If so, what criteria will be used to ensure fairness, transparency, and equitable access, especially in underserved communities? Thank you.
Can I ask you to come on the front row mic? I'm sorry. I don't think President was able to pick up your last follow-up.
I think it's even more to speak into the mic like I am doing. Even when seated, it should do.
Madam Speaker.
Speaker.
You can
Honorable
go ahead.
President.
Yes, Honorable Chief Whip of PA.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Sorry to do this. My apologies. I have, while I'm sitting here, sent a message to Honorable Peterson to say she must use a campaign voice because I know her outside of this house.
Honorable Member, Chief Whip, don't take it from Honorable Peterson. She will do exactly what she needs to do.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think the President should have just said he can't see me. Honorable President, is there any intention to prioritize specific provinces or categories of unemployed youth in the implementation of any such programs? If so, what will be the criteria to ensure fairness, transparency, and equitable access, especially in underserved communities? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President.
Yeah. Could the honorable member come closer, please?
Order, honorable members.
Honorable.
You can go ahead,
President.
Honorable Peterson.
Is there any intention to prioritize specific provinces or categories of unemployed youth in the implementation of any such programs? If so, what criteria will be used to ensure fairness, transparency, and equitable access, especially in underserved communities? Thank you.
Thank you.
I rise on a point of order.
What is the point of order?
Honorable
Mr. President, you can take a seat.
Honorable Speaker, as the Chief Whip of the Patriotic Alliance,
Yes.
I've said campaign voice, not below talk voice.
That is not a point of order, Honorable Malum. What I will do to make sure that President is able to hear members will give him the earphone. And I'm sorry, we are not going to have other candidates to come to the podium to ask their questions. Honorable President.
I think the Honorable Chief Whip of the Patriotic Alliance has imaginations of grandeur. I could never have a pillow talk in public.
That is not parliamentary also. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Yes, Honorable Peterson, you are raising a very important question about the transparency and the equitability of these types of programs, which if, for instance, the Defense Force embarks on, it should be able to be transparent about where it will source those people who will participate in the programs and what criteria will be used to identify them so that they can get into these programs. Your suggestion is well said, and it is actually something that we ought to be doing so that we move away from the notion of just focusing on certain either provinces or certain communities, leaving out underserved communities. It's something that we will pass on to our various departments so that they are able to reach out even as they source people or young people to participate in these types of programs. And I know the impact that it would have if the sourcing of those young people will even extend to the deep rural communities of our country, the communities that hardly get much opportunities. So I take to heart to your suggestion, and I'm rather pleased that you came up to the podium because I could now hear you much clearly. Thank you very much. Apart from seeing you, of course, it was a joy to see you.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. Our next question, question 9, is from Honorable Jim Michalakis. Honorable Michalakis, I would like to congratulate you for having been elected now the leader of the Democratic Alliance in Parliament.
For me.
But I know that you are still doubling up. I haven't been told who's the new chief whip. So you are a chief whip in transition to being, that step of moving. So the question, Mr. President, is whether he has found that the rollout of Operation Prosper has succeeded in meeting its objective thus far. If not, what is the position in this regard? If so, what are the relevant details? Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Since the inception or commencement of Operation Prosper, which is the joint deployment of the South African Police Service and the South African National Defense Force, it has yielded significant progress in stabilizing priority hotspots and also disrupting acts of crime across the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, Northwest, Gauteng, and the Free State. Given the recent commencement of the deployments in certain priority action areas, it is a bit too early to draw definitive conclusions regarding the impact and also giving the actual numbers. However, indications suggest that a reduction in selected crime categories within the operational areas has actually taken place. More than 1,000 arrests have been affected, and most notably, 550 were in the Western Cape and 238 in the Eastern Cape. There has been a strong focus on dismantling drug networks and illegal mining syndicates as well, alongside arrests that are linked to serious violent crimes. Now, operational intensity has been sustained in all this through the execution of over 38,000 coordinated actions, including roadblocks and targeted tracing operations, resulting in the seizure of 18 firearms, 792 rounds of ammunition, and 186 explosives. This directly weakens the operational capacity of criminal networks. Now, these outcomes are underpinned by robust command and control structures that were established through the Joint Operational and Intelligence Structure, ensuring that there's integrated planning, daily joint briefings, and unified execution between the South African Police Service and the South African National Defence Force commanders. Honourable Speaker, while there is tangible progress towards reclaiming territory and stabilizing communities and advancing broader security outcomes, we need a government-wide and a society-wide effort to prevent crime and address its social and economic causes. There is much that Operation Prosper can achieve and is currently achieving, but it also needs to be reinforced and be supported by an integrated crime prevention strategy to be undertaken by all parts of the state and all sectors of society. And in this regard, I do believe that it was a correct decision to deploy the South African National Defence Force to support the South African Police Service, and we are beginning to see good dividends. The recovery of so many explosives and so much ammunition just talks to how effective this program has been. And the arrest of so many people is pointing us in the right direction. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable President. Honourable Michalakis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and for your kind words. Mr. President, I have different stats. During the week of 23 February to 1 March, gang violence across the Cape Flats claimed 36 lives. In the first week of Operation Prosper, it averaged 32 people dead. Between October and December last year, an average of 20 illegal firearm and ammunition-related cases were recorded in Mitchell's Plain alone. For the first month of Operation Prosper, among multiple deployment areas, the figure has gone up from 20 to 23. Based on this, the situation has actually gotten worse, and the price tag is 823 million rand, whilst the national government is responsible for policing. Mr. President, can you look the mothers who lost children killed on the flats, Westbury and other places since the start of Prosper in the eye and say to them too that it is working?
Thank you, Honourable President.
Honourable Member, yes, I would be able to look those mothers and offer my condolences and also offer my sympathies and inform them and the community of those areas that we are doing everything we can, and we will do much more to bring down the levels of gang violence. And of course, we can politicize this matter as much as we like. The fact of the matter that when lives are lost, we should all be saying we want the police and the SANDF to succeed. That is why I say it is a government-wide and a community-wide effort that will bring down the levels of this criminality. We are scaling up our intelligence services. We are scaling up our complete surveillance of all these gangs, and much is being done to ensure that we bring down those levels of criminality. Yes, we count the cost that it is taking. The cost is about the deployment of those people. Those people, the soldiers and the police that we are deploying, are employees who are working way beyond their normal hours of work, who have to be accommodated away from their families, who also have to be transported to wherever they need to go. That costs money. And we've always all said, let's put more boots on the ground. Let's have more and more security officials on the ground. And that's precisely what we are doing. Success will come. I'm sure about that. And our police service and our defense force is under enormous pressure from me to make sure that Operation Prosper does succeed. So I'm looking forward to much better news going forward, rather than, yes, the bad news that you are giving me. Work with us, work with the police, and let's see how best we can bring those levels down. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable WM3.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Mr. President, the ACDP welcomed the SANDF's deployment in support of SAPS to fight organised crime and gangsterism plaguing our communities, trusting that this deployment would result in safer communities. Sadly, many community leaders have criticised the military presence as short-term band-aid solution to a long-term deep-rooted violent crime. Mr. President, noting the underfunding that was mentioned by Honorable Kwankwa of the SANDF, and given that Cabinet has recently approved the Journey to Greatness for the SANDF, will the Honorable President, as Commander-in-Chief, number one, ensure that additional financial resources are made available to guarantee that the SANDF not only succeeds in its Journey to Greatness strategy, but is able to fulfill its constitutional mandate of protecting the country, including this case of supporting the police in fighting organized crime? And secondly, does the Journey to Greatness strategy have an explicit exit strategy to prevent violent crime when the SANDF exits? Thank you, President.
Thank you, Honorable President.
The simple and straightforward answer to that is yes. We will be ensuring that we support the SANDF on its journey to greatness, and that has to be underpinned by giving them more resources. And we continue to support the South African Police Service to strengthen them, to enhance their capability, so that when the time approved by Parliament for them to be deployed in that area, when it comes to an end or when it's scaled down, they are able, as the South African Police Service, to work with the communities much more effectively, with our community policing forums, with everyone in the community, to ensure that we are able to rid of organized crime and crime activities or gang activities in those areas. So the full answer is yes, we are committed to capacitate them financially and so that they can have all the resources they need to secure the safety of our people. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable Michalakis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. President, the answer is not the army. The answer is fixing the police. You just said that we should not politicize the matter. So my question to you, Mr. President, is if local and provincial governments, such as here in the Western Cape, are willing to help save lives, do you agree that your government should give them more powers to do so?
Honorable President.
Our police have powers to fight crime. Our Constitution empowers the police to fight crime. The law empowers police to fight crime. So there's nothing that stands in the way of our police in whatever fashion, constitutional or legally or otherwise. Their command system empowers them to fight crime. And all that we need to do is to strengthen the capacity of the police, not only at national level, at provincial level, at local level. Every police station in the country must be empowered to ensure that it is able to either stop criminality, work with community policing forums, and investigate acts of criminality. That's what the police are there for. We can never have a situation where we tie the hands of the police behind their backs. That can never be. So the police are empowered. It's a false notion to think that the police in particular areas do not have the power. every police official has the power to ensure that we fight criminality. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, President. We now move to question number 10, asked by Honorable Van Staden to the President. The question is, in view of the serious allegations made against a certain person in his cabinet name and details furnished, which raise urgent questions about accountability, what are the reasons that he has not acted decisively, suspending and or removing the person from cabinet, whether he commits to act decisively in this regard? If not, why not? If so, what are the relevant details? Honorable President.
Honorable Speaker, on the basis of various reports in the media, as well as representations in Parliament, I requested the then Minister of Social Development to furnish me with a report on all these matters. I had a discussion with the Minister and gave her an opportunity to set out her case. Now, having considered all these submissions by the Minister and mindful of the conduct expected of members of the Executive, I have decided to remove the Minister from the position of Minister of Social Development in terms of Section 91(2) of the Constitution. Now, an announcement to this effect was made by my office earlier today, and in her stead, I've appointed an acting minister. Minister Chikunga will act while I give further consideration to what should happen in that portfolio. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable Van Staden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. President, the Freedom Front Plus welcomes your decision to release the Minister of Social Development from her duties, and this shows that public pressure, as well as pressure from political parties like ourselves, bear fruit at the end of the day. My question, however, to you, Mr. President, is will you table the findings or reports that inform your decision to remove the Minister before Parliament, and if not, why not? I thank you.
Honorable President.
The President is never required to disclose the reasons why they appoint or disappoint, in other words, remove any member of the Executive. And I intend to stick by that convention and practice. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Mr. President, Honorable T.P. Munyai.
Esteemed Honorable Speaker, esteemed His Excellency, the Honorable President's authority or the prerogative is to appoint, retain, suspend, or dismiss members of the Executive as prescribed by Section 91, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Republic of 1996, which vests such powers within the constitutional discretion of His Excellency, the Honorable President. Whilst we are mindful of the doctrine of the separation of powers, without each branch not allowed to intrude or overreach on the other branch of the state. What has His Excellency, the Honorable President, would have done to maintain and restore public confidence in the integrity of the Executive in this regard? Already, His Excellency, you already answered to this question. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable President.
I believe the Honorable Member concedes that the question has been answered. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable N.K. Sharif.
Mr. President, we commend you taking action against the now former Minister Tolashe. Scandals like these compromise public trust in the executive, and South Africans are the one who ultimately pay the price. By agreeing with the leader of the Democratic Alliance and firing Sisisi Tolashe, you have taken decisive action in cleaning up cabinet. But, Mr. President, we need to keep this momentum going. We cannot have ministers suspended indefinitely, drawing salaries from taxpayers' money while they sit at home and do nothing, undermining the integrity of national government. We trust that you will keep this momentum going, and now turn your attention to firing Minister Mkunu. With Ms. Tolashe out of cabinet, Mr. President, will you finally act and amend the Executive Ethics Code to ban ministers from accepting luxury gifts, particularly from foreign governments?
Thank you, Honourable Member. Just again to remind members, in the House we don't call each other by name. We preface by saying Honourable Member, so and so, or we say Miss or Mr. I'm happy you corrected yourself on the second sentence of that question, but it's just a reminder once again. Honourable President.
Members of the executive are duty-bound to disclose and declare gifts that are given to them, to me, and upon receipt of that declaration, we're able to say, yes, you may accept, or nay, you may not accept. So in the end, all those gifts above a certain amount are declared. So you can be rest assured that we do have a credible process in government through which the executive is able to deal with these sorts of matters. As regards the minister that has been suspended that you have spoken about, I have said publicly that I am waiting for the outcome of the Madlanga Commission on all the matters that they are dealing with. And it is upon receipt of such that a determination will be made. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honourable D.E. James.
Thank you, Mr. President. We welcome your decision earlier today, but I want to ask, will she be charged for fraud? Will her advisor, the Ben 10, be paying the money for that irregular appointment? Will the cousin to the advisor for that irregular appointment also be paying back the money, Mr. President? Mr. President, I want to put it to you, it is not the only aid that she's been stealing from. I brought more receipts for you. She's been doing this since her time as a deputy minister. I have a sworn affidavit as well as bank statements. Will the minister be doing the right thing to pay back all these aids that she's been stealing from? Mr. President, what is your response to that? I thank you.
Honourable James, I've noted some of the language that you've used, and some of the matters, as you know, you'll have to bring a substantive motion to the House. You may have an affidavit, but for it to serve in the House for debate, you'll have to bring a substantive motion. And secondly, I think languages of Ben 10, I'm not sure that they can be used in this Parliament. Honourable President.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I think that some matters are better articulated not through anger. I think the message descends rather well when it is so. However, I should say all processes and matters related to this whole incident are being worked through by the Public Service Administration. So the Public Service Administration is the relevant body that looks at all these types of matters, and I have confidence that they will be able to come to a good conclusion so that this matter can be closed. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honourable Van Staden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. President, clear government in the fight against corruption and maladministration are dependent on transparency. The people of South Africa have a right to know exactly what was going on in the Department of Social Development. Therefore, Mr. President, what criteria or thresholds does the President apply when determining whether to suspend or remove a cabinet member facing serious allegations? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable President.
Well, ordinarily, the Code of Ethics does apply. And beyond that, in the end, it is a judgment call that is made by the President to appoint or not to appoint anyone to the executive. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. We now move to question 11, which has been asked by Honorable Katie Khabo. The question is, given that the government has historically intervened to assist in debt relief efforts for its strategic sectors such as energy and municipalities, what is his position on introducing similar innovative measures to address student debt, which perpetuates poverty and inequality by preventing students from graduating and or obtaining their certificates to assess employment and or further their studies? Honorable President.
Honorable Speaker, government has previously intervened in a number of ways to assist with debt relief in higher education and training. Now, this includes in 2019 the provision of debt relief to historically held debt that was due to NSFAS for qualifying students to the amount of 967 million rand, almost R1 billion. Now, this was directed at debt that predated the new financial aid model that was introduced in 2018. The National Student Finance Aid Scheme, NSFAS, supports close on to 900,000 students a year from low income as well as working class families in order to assist them to access higher education. Now, students supported by NSFAS who apply on time and meet the academic eligibility and progression requirements should graduate from institutions of higher learning with no debt. In other words, they will benefit from what you could call free university and college education. While NSFAS funding supports the majority of undergraduate students, and there are also alternative forms of support for a number of students, including various other bursaries, university-allocated funding, and commercial loans that the university sector in particular still faces growing debt, student debt. Now, this debt reaches approximately 23 billion rand in 2024. This student debt is not held by the government, but by public universities themselves. This is a concern for the financial sustainability of universities. In 2022, the Minister of Higher Education and Training reported that a ministerial task team had provided advice on the development of what we would call a comprehensive student funding model. This model would address financial aid for students who are considered to be in the so-called missing middle. This is a diverse group of self-funded students, including those who do not meet NSFAS financial eligibility criteria and those who may struggle to access other forms of funding. Now, work on this comprehensive funding model is still underway. In addition, the department itself is in the process of finalizing precisely this model. I'm hopeful that we will be able to have a new model that will assist those students who are in the missing middle, where they are able to afford certain levels of funding, but not the complete funding that is required for their education. So we would like to see the student debt reduced quite substantially so that all our young people are able to access education on a fair basis. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable President. Mr. K.D. Khabu.
Mic is not working. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much also, Mr. President. We really appreciate the response and your commitment towards the realization of free quality education in South Africa. However, Mr. President, given the recent reports indicate a rise in youth unemployment and appreciating that student debt serves as a structural barrier that prevents graduates from entering the workforce, does the government regard this crisis as a matter requiring additional national intervention, similar to how the government has previously intervened to stabilize sectors considered strategically important to the economy? Thank you very much.
Honorable President.
Yes, it is so that more resources are required. And government spends almost 54 billion rand on supporting young people to access higher education. Now, with the constrained fiscal position that we have, obviously our ambition and our wish is that we should expand the eligibility of NSFAS to all students, but we are not able to do so with the resources that we have at hand. Our ambition, obviously, is what we want to focus on and to see the extent to which we can come up with a model that will support young people in an affordable manner. And I know, for instance, in a number of other countries, they have a system where children from poor and working class families are fully supported. But at the same time, those who are able to have some funding are supported through bursaries. Bursaries that they then start paying off when they start working. And that is a model which we believe can help to cover all the students in our country that need higher education funding. Of course, you mentioned how, for instance, our SETAs can also come to the fore and assist. The SETAs are more geared for those who have already qualified, who are in the skills development process. But we are seeking to find ways through this model that is now in development. And I'll be following up with the Minister that this model must now be speeded up so that it can be open for discussion and debate, and then we should proceed to implement it because it will, to a large extent, help to solve the problems that many of our young people are facing at the moment. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable Hadebe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable President, South Africa currently lacks a uniform legal framework prohibiting the withholding of academic certificates as individual institutions operate under their own institutional rules and policies. Mr. President, does the government, in consultation with institutions of higher learning, have financially sustainable and cost-effective plans to practically address the interest that graduates continue to accrue on student debt? If not, why not? If so, what are the details? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I did not hear that final part of the question, if you may.
Honorable Hadebe, you can repeat it while seated down, it's fine. No one is going to have another opportunity to walk to the podium. No.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The question was if the government, in consultation with institutions of higher learning, have financially sustainable and cost-effective plans to practically address the interest that graduates continue to accrue on student debt, given the fact that South Africa currently lacks a uniform legal framework prohibiting the withholding of academic certificates. Thank you.
Honorable President.
No, I'm not aware of a plan that will address the issue of the increase of the interest or the accrual of the interest. However, the problem that you are citing is a matter of concern all round, and I do know for a fact that it is being discussed. The Minister of Higher Education is involved in discussions with the various institutions of higher learning to find ways and means of addressing precisely this problem. So solutions may well be on hand. And the other part, of course, is to see how best we can bring in financial institutions to assist in setting up this type of model that is now being developed. Because quite often, the issue of interest has to do with the cost of money. And yes, we agree that students need to be cushioned against that, but it is the money that is costing those institutions as they are deprived of the utilization of money if they have given bursaries. So it's a matter, there's a problem that has to be resolved and that is being resolved. We need, as a country, to come up with a scheme that young people will know that if they don't qualify for NSFAS, there is help elsewhere. And it's a model that will be affordable and a model that they themselves will feel free to participate in quite actively. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. Honorable Zibi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. President, the new funding model you referred to earlier on in this question, do you know if it will apply retrospectively to students who are already stuck with this problem? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President.
I would hope and want it to apply retrospectively because students are heavily burdened with debt. And so therefore, if we build a model like this, it should be a model that will resolve the problems that have been inherited in the past as it looks to the future. So I would want it to apply retrospectively as well. So good idea, and thank you for that idea, which we will take forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable Khabo.
No, thank you very much, President, and thanks for your response. And I appreciate the fact that you also acknowledge that the historical debts continues to rise. Now, on behalf of students who are academically excluded, Mr. President, I would like to get clarity from you on what would be different from the model that you'll be introducing. We acknowledge the intervention of the previous model. It has managed to accommodate students who are located within the missing middle. But what will be different from the model that you'll be introducing? Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Honorable President.
Well, I'm hoping that the model will be comprehensive. It will be a model that will apply more broadly and comprehensively, and will be a model, as I said, will be affordable, because when students start off their own lives, they shouldn't be burdened with too much debt, too much money to repay their education. We need to have a model that will make it easier for them to start off in their lives. But the model will be put out, and we will be obviously consulting with student organizations themselves. And in developing the model, I know that they have already been engaged in some ways, and the finalization of the model will be forthcoming soon. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. We now move to question number 12, which is the last question for the day. It's by Honorable SNM Kwenazondi. The question is, noting that Section 8 and 9 of South Africa's Police Service Act prescribes a mandatory board of inquiry and due process prior to the suspension or removal of a national commissioner, and that Section 86 of the Public Finance Management Act criminalizes financial misconduct only upon proof of willful or grossly negligent conduct in a court of law, on what lawful and rational basis did he bypass the preemptory procedures of the SAPS Act in favor of a so-called contextual precautionary suspension, notwithstanding that the PFMA threshold for criminal liability has not yet been judicially established, and how does he justify appointing as acting National Commissioner Lieutenant General Puleng Tipane, the Divisional Commissioner responsible for Financial Management Services, who is implicated in that her department allowed the payment of 48 million in the same Medicare 24 tender processes that is under investigation, rather than an independent appointee, without creating a reasonable apprehension of conflicted oversight and selectively accountability. Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, General Fani Masemula, consented to being suspended. As a result, there was no need to engage the process in Section 8 and 9 of the SAPS Act, which processes are aimed at obtaining a basis for a suspension that is contested. I considered the placement of General Masemula on precautionary suspension necessary to ensure the stability and effective functioning of the South African Police Service while the criminal process unfolds. It is important that the legal processes be allowed to unfold without any hindrance. I appointed Lieutenant General Puleng Dimpani as the Acting National Commissioner because of her record and standing in the police service. She has had a long service record in the police service. There is, to my knowledge, no evidence that implicates Lieutenant General Dimpani in relation to the Medicare 24 tender and contact. I have full confidence in her ability to act in the position of National Commissioner as she is acting right now, fully supported by her colleagues, working together to ensure that we deal with the acts of criminality that are rife in our country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable D.R. Tireko.
Thank you, Speaker. Honorable President, we support the intervention that you have done in the Department of SAPS in line with your responsibility as the President of the country. However, President, what mechanism have you put in place to ensure that the acting commissioner exercise oversight independently without any influence arising from the previous administration responsibilities? Thank you, President.
Honorable President.
The acting commissioner is well supported by her colleagues and also well supported by the Minister of Police, Professor Kachalia. And to my knowledge and to my observation, they are all working very well together. There's a team spirit that has been developed and has evolved. So I have no doubt that they will be able to execute the task at hand with the diligence that it requires without any form of interference from anyone. And I have said to Lieutenant General Dimpani that she must execute her task without undue influence from any quarter whatsoever. And she is quite an independent thinker herself, and I do believe that she'll be able to act independently in the interests of the people of South Africa. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable Michalakis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. President, the nation entrusted you to appoint a suitable acting national commissioner for SAPS. Yet your decision has already raised concerns over the lack of operational policing experience for the top cop. There seems to be almost no one clean among the top ranks, so we understand you were not spoiled for choice. Recent reports show that 26 senior officials at Brigadier Major General level and above have been suspended or arrested, with more arrests expected. The failures are a direct result of deploying cadres to lead the police. When, Mr. President, will you acknowledge that the SAPS leadership is dysfunctional due to ANC cadre deployment?
Honorable President.
In setting up the Madlanga Commission, we intended to examine and find out exactly the issues that you are addressing. And it is that commission that is assisting us to identify all the acts of wrongdoing, to identify also the capability or lack thereof amongst the senior police officials. So this is an important process that our country is going through, and I would just wish that we all support it and await the results of the Madlanga Commission, whereafter we will be able to take much clearer steps to move our police service forward. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable President. That concludes questions to the President, and we'd like to thank you for coming to the House. And can all of you take your seats and not leave the House? I'm only allowing the President to take his seat. Thank you very much. Order. Can we take our seats? Honorable members, I just want to advise that when we're in the House here, given the noises as a result of the aircons, if you are not able to hear very well, please utilize the earphones which are provided for. The privilege that was just given to Honorable Peterson is not going to be repeated. I request members to stand and await the Speaker and the maids to leave the chamber. That concludes the business for the day, and the House is adjourned.